What's going on, guys? So I have a quick pro tip for you all today if you own a Ford, specifically a Super Duty and probably a half-ton Ford with this aluminum body. Now, I only say aluminum body to designate the body style and year, not necessarily the electronics. So this may hold true for earlier equipped trucks or even later equipped trucks. But if you own a Super Duty for sure, and you have upfitter switches in it, and it is this body style of Super Duty, you might want to pay attention to this video if you're running into a problem with your remote start not working after you've disconnected your battery. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so many of you know that I recently had my truck in the shop because of brake-related issues. Well, I guess while it was in the shop, they had to disconnect the battery for whatever reason. Maybe whenever they adjusted the brakes or did something, it popped a code up. I don't really know, but I know that when I got the truck back, my power running boards didn't deploy, and that's typically a sign that the battery's been disconnected. So when I went into the settings, I saw that it was turned off. Maybe they had it disconnected for some other reason. I'm not sure. But the battery was disconnected. I think it might actually be like standard protocol whenever you're working on a vehicle. Anyways, battery disconnected. Back to that again. And I picked up the truck. When they pulled it around, it was running. So I just hopped in the truck and I drove off. Once I got it back here to the property, I realized pretty quickly that my remote start stopped working. So if you are a Ford owner, specifically Super Duty or even, any of the other more current vehicles, you probably realize that the remote start function, if equipped, works by pressing the lock button and then the start button twice in rapid succession. So basically you're going to press lock, start, and the truck will start up. And it will run for, like 10-15 minutes, whatever you have it set for. Yeah, mine wasn't working. Everything else was working perfectly fine. Every feature on the truck, I wasn't having an issue with anything else. I wasn't getting a check engine light. I didn't know what was going on. So I started searching YouTube for a solution. And there were all these videos talking about where you can go up to the start button, press the start button, then press the remote start button on your remote very quickly within like 1 second. Hold it for like 5 to 10 seconds. And then let go, get out of the vehicle, lock it, try to start the truck, and it should work. A lot of people said you had to do it a few times for that to work. There's also another series of controls where you can kind of reprogram your key by like having the door open, hitting the start stop button a certain number of times in a certain order, and none of that stuff worked. So I was still kind of plagued with this issue of why is my remote start not working, and I could not find a single answer anywhere on YouTube that specifically addressed the problem I was having with a fix, because I tried all the stuff that they said. The problem I ran into was there were none of the newer model trucks. Everything was like a 2016, 2015. Most were Explorers or older model F-150s. So I wanted to make this specific video to address how I fixed the problem with my truck. So again, I went through all the different steps. I even had a code reader I have plugged it in to see if there were any hidden check engine lights that may have popped up that I wasn't aware of. Couldn't find any of that stuff. I disconnected both batteries, waited an hour and a half, put them back, and none of that worked. I disconnected one battery at a time. None of it worked. I just could not get the remote start to function. So I go to bed stressed out, thinking I'm gonna have to take the truck to the shop. Let Ford try to figure it out, let them do what they need to do, and ultimately leave my truck there for a period of time, which I really didn't want to do. So again, started brainstorming what else could it be. So I figured this morning I would try something a little bit different. Again, I've already disconnected the batteries. I've done it like for 10 minutes and then for an hour and a half, and none of that worked. I realized that I had two upfitter switches turned on. One of the upfitter switches is for my airbags, and the other upfitter switch is for my my onboard air system. And I was wondering, maybe the system, whenever it popped a check engine light for Ford or whatever ended up happening, maybe it had something to do with those auxiliary upfitter switches. I don't know what would have caused it, but I'm thinking, you know what, maybe I need to turn those off, then disconnect the battery, wait. I was going to wait like an hour and a half, but at first I'm like, you know what, I'm going to wait like 10 minutes. Let's see what happens. So I disconnected the battery after turning the upfitter switches off, connected the battery back again, remote started it. Lo and behold, remote start worked. So sorry for the cicadas. They are screaming this morning. So that was something that for some reason it just didn't register to me until like the last day, right before I was going to take it to the Ford dealership to try to get it diagnosed to do. And again, you have to think these vehicles operate off of a CAN bus, very complex computer system. And it's looking for any type of a fault to prevent something from potentially happening that's not supposed to happen, such as remote starting while there's a fault that could cause a fire or could cause something else to break. And when I started to kind of think about it, I'm like, you know what? Those upfitter switches that come on my truck could very well be sending a signal to the computer that wasn't cleared initially whenever Ford was working on the truck. And I need to turn those upfitter switches off and then try to disconnect the battery, clear whatever issues there might be, reconnect the battery, and that's what did it. So if you're running into a scenario where your remote start's not working on a later model Ford, I don't know about the earlier ones where you have to hold the remote near the start button and have to hit the start right after you press the start button. None of that worked for me. The whole reprogram your keys, none of that worked for me. What worked for me was realizing I had upfitter switches that were powered on. And when I started the truck, obviously the truck didn't like what had happened when it was at the dealership, and I needed to reset that. So resetting that wasn't just unplugging the batteries, plugging them back in. It was also turning off the upfitter switches, then unplugging the batteries, giving it like 10 minutes to sit, putting the batteries back on, or putting the negative terminals back on the batteries, and then trying everything, and it worked perfectly. So I just wanted to share that with you all because this may be a problem that's happening with your vehicle and you've just been trying to rack your brain on how to fix it without taking it to the dealership. And I would have been a little frustrated had I taken it to the dealership and realized that it was that simple, because I don't know if they would have told me it was that simple or if they would have had to do something else. So again, if you're running into an issue, remote starting your vehicle, you press lock twice and then the truck starts, and my truck wasn't starting. So pretty dang simple fix. Was able to knock it out real quick, and now I'm happy. Anyways, guys, just wanted to share this with you all. I know there's a lot of Ford owners that watch the channel. If you've ever ran into this situation and you're racking your brain trying to figure out what you can do, this was the fix for me. May not be the fix for you. Hopefully it is if you have this problem. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Perhaps when the cicadas die down and stop making their annoying noise.